So we begin. So today we're going to talk about video game art. And is it art at all? So there's many forms of traditional artwork, basically conceptual, there's also Greek type art, there's sculptures, all that fun stuff. But is video game art? Martin Scorsese and Robert Ebert said that video games is not art, and they got a lot of criticism for that. So what is art, by the way? The definition is, art is a wide range of human activities that involve creative imagination and an aim to express technical proficiency, beauty, emotional power, or conceptual ideas. There's no general agreed definition of what constitutes art, and ideas have changed over time. Now, for video games itself, there are many artistic expression within video games. There's sculptures that are made within the characters themselves nowadays. Back in the day, it used to be 2D original projects, but nowadays, such as Mario and what have you, it becomes like a movie and a settings. It brings you into the story itself. So is video game more of a tale that will bring you in? It's an immersive art form, basically. Rather than filmmaking, filmmaking also brings you into the story itself, but it's not interactive. Video games itself is like a painting that you can play with. Art forms within video games, such as 3D modeling, sculptures, illustration. There's a narrative arc, there's dynamic music. There's also lighting that goes into every form, such as days, nights, stars, galaxies, what have you that you may come across. Some video games like Okami and Zelda, they go back to the traditions of Japanese artwork, where they use ink to fill out the forms itself. Now, other artwork such as GTA or Grand Theft Auto, it was a more cartoony, basically from 1 to 3, and then Vice City and San Andreas, of course. And then after that, from 4 to 5, it's become more real life definition. So is that real life? Or, is it more art form, would you say? Of course it is. Such as, look at the trees and the vehicle inspirations that they took upon making the models. If you look at a car, that in itself is artwork, you would say. Also in video games nowadays, you can do photo options, such as Spider-Man or God of War or Ghost of Tsushima. I apologize if I say that wrong, but you can do many photography artwork within that frame. You can play with the aperture, you can play with the f-stop, you can play with the shutter speed, you can make sure the background is blurred, you can make sure it's black and white or colored or make it more vibrant or bring in the leaves. You can make it your own expression of artwork itself. Now with storytelling, you can say filmmaking is an art form, so why not video game? Video games has all these elements with sculptures and animation and music and sound effects, all collabed into one. Now more open worlds and linear are all art forms in itself. If you look at No Man's Sky, it's basically an artistic vision of different worlds and different space mechanics. If you look at different worlds within No Man's Sky, you can see a surreal image, sort of like what a Picasso may make. Or look at another game and you may see features of Leonardo da Vinci. What's transformed from Leonardo da Vinci to a modern day artwork of the video game, basically? All these artists who work on these video games also draw out all these characters. So is it that in itself video game artwork? There's also a video game called Dreams. Now in Dreams you can make original artwork such as Picasso or Rembrandt or what have you. I'll show some examples here. Or you can also a clay art form or a still life if you want. A real life watercolor that you can walk in. So you can immerse yourself within artwork itself. The medium of video games is potentially postmodern art and should be viewed as any other form of art. Not all games, of course, deserve the title of art, but also there's a lot of art out there that has no talent and is sold worth millions. So, video games have been interested in philosophy of art since at least the mid-2000s, where a growing body of literature typically examining video games in the art world. What qualifies a piece of artwork? The expression or application of human creative skill and imagination typically is a visual form such as a painting or a sculpture, producing works to be primarily to the beauty or emotional power. and subject to study primarily concerned while the process and product of human creativity and social life such as language, literature, and history. Andy Warhol has a phrase, "Art is anything you can get away with." Degas quote, "Art is not what you see, but what you make others see." And a general idea that the goal of art is to embody an idea or invite an experience or a reaction. Do you feel an expression? Do you feel a mood? What is your mood set with these art pieces? Do you find these are art? Do you think that these belong in the museums all around the world? In art history, you study the philosophies why the painting was created and so forth. The same goes with video games itself. Impressionism as a movement destroyed the French Academy of Art and shook the bedrock of all ideals that were expressed through art since the Roman Empire. Almost everyone shouted that the Impressionists were not artists. But today, people flock to Van Gogh's Starry Night. It is no longer shocking. It's a commonplace in coffee shop art. It is high art now. And those who overthrew the Impressionists are also high art. One could cite the artists for hire in the Renaissance era as a counterexample by pointing to many of the grand masters who were commissioned in painting portraiture and interiors. However, most saw their work as a craft as opposed to art, such as Michelangelo doing the Sistine Chapel job. He considered himself a sculptor, not a painter. Design can be creative and art, but it is a craft by default. Created with the intention of creating art, designs design with the intention of selling their design. At a basic level, intention is what separates art from design and craft. Artists intend to express, designs intend to craft. So video games are a medium for mediums. Composers create soundtracks and effects. Artists create 2D images and 3D models, writers draft stories and arcs and dialogue, and programmers choreograph all the moving pieces in a seamless world. The art is a hodgepodge of art. The players and audience experience the games in a first-person sort of way, or third person, up to whatever game you're playing. There is no other medium where the audience or person experiences empathizes with it so heavily with the personal pronouns when describing their own experience. They are not merely, no one reads a book and thinks they actually killed the whale in Moby Dick, or thinks they have a crappy Christmas because they regulate according to the Christmas Carol. But simply being immersed into a nice looking digital field of virtual environment can get a rush of adrenaline of what you're doing. But simply immersing yourself in these beautiful worlds does not qualify as art. There are plenty of games that never intend to be art. In fact, most games are made with sole purpose of creating income. It is not that making money conflicts with art, but a basic purpose in creation is financial. It is a widget for the bottom line, not a work of art. There are video games that intend to suck the players in. There are video games that intend to be art though, and engulf the player. They are rivalry compared to Monet or Mozart. But what is art if you're not experiencing or getting the mood of what you're going after? There are not examples within art history of movements overthrowing the rules, points, objectives, and outcomes of the art world of the time. All games have rules, no matter how ridiculous they may be. You must move or watch or talk to press a button in order to experience the artwork itself. Gaming industry has grown and transformed more rapidly over the past 60 years than any other medium, and have difference in cinema, literature, music, textiles, or 2D art. Or compare the state of games to 70 years ago before games were invented. The medium is still in the cave painting stage of its lifetime. Would you say cave paintings are an art form itself? Or would you consider it a stick figure, beautiful work of art? It's really up to you how you perceive art itself. Art is subjective. So, in a way, video games have a monumental basis of every art form itself. Music, sculpture, story, everything combined into one thing. It's just immersive. More immersive than a painting would be, unless you had buttons on a Monet. Now, speaking of video game art, if you look at video game covers, such as the late Bob Wakelin. He worked on Ocean and Imagine cover arts. He didn't like video games per se, but video game covers immersed you into the story itself. His artwork was very vibrant and told the story in itself within that one cover that you may see. Nowadays, most video game covers follow a common niche, such as the back of a main character or the front of the main character or a character with a gun. Now there's a lot of common niches, but they still have a same color gradient that brings out a lot of things. Color gradients also, with cover arts, they sort of lean on common color codes such as yellows or oranges or blues or what have you. Back in the olden days with the 80s, the cover art was amazing, but the video games itself didn't match the matter. So video game sales sort of went down from like Atari and so forth, since if you look at E.T. or Pac-Man, the video game didn't really retrospect what it was. Nintendo brought to life video game artwork where it corresponded with the video game itself, such as Mario. When you look at the classic Mario cover on Nintendo, you can see that pixelated graphic is Mario, and you actually play that character. So they bring you back into the realm of, hey, this is what I'm actually playing. And then that also coincides with Nintendo 64 and PlayStation, where they brought in the polygon, which didn't look that great, but it made the character realize this is the story that I'm immersing myself in. Nowadays, video game artwork is wide range. Besides the niches, they still have beautiful artwork. Japanese and European cover art is much more different than American. They're not as lazy as American artwork, or they're more artistically valued, which that'll be another topic for another day. So while looking at the video games that I showed previously, do you think it's artwork? It's really up to you how you perceive it. If you don't find it's art, what is a book then? What is a painting? Is it not just a standard piece of artwork? Or is it just something that gives you fulfillment or a mood changer perhaps? So what do you think of video game art? Do you think it's worthwhile to go into museums? Do you think it's not worthwhile? Please leave it in the comments down below. Like and subscribe, and thank you and have a great day. Bye.